The 1460 Battle of Wakefield and the death of Richard of York. The Battle of Wakefield, fought on December 30, 1460, represents a watershed moment in the protracted Wars of the Roses, a dynastic conflict between the houses of Lancaster and York for dominion over the English crown. This engagement not only underscored the volatility and brutality of the age, but also culminated in the death of Richard, Duke of York, a central figure whose demise reshaped the trajectory of the conflict. The reverberations of this battle extended beyond the battlefield, influencing political alignments, intensifying factional hostilities, and defining the dynamics of power during a critical juncture in English history. It marked a convergence of personal vendettas, strategic miscalculations, and the relentless pursuit of power, making it a focal point for historical scrutiny. Background to the battle. The Wars of the Roses emerged from complex disputes surrounding the legitimacy of King Henry VI, whose debilitating mental illness rendered him an ineffective monarch. Richard, Duke of York, positioned himself as a protector of the realm, championing reforms and asserting his claim to the throne. Opposing him stood the Lancastrians, led by Queen Margaret of Anjou, whose tenacity in defending her husband's rights and their son Edward's succession galvanized her faction. Margaret's political and military agency defied conventional gender roles of the period, earning her both admiration and animosity among contemporaries. By 1460, the conflict reached a critical phase. Following the Yorkist triumph at the Battle of Northampton in July, Richard audaciously pressed his claim to kingship, culminating in the Act of Accord. This controversial agreement named him as the heir to the throne, effectively disinheriting Henry's son. While York's actions sought to stabilize the kingdom by resolving the succession crisis, they also provoked Queen Margaret, who mobilized Lancastrian forces in the north, thus setting the stage for the decisive confrontation at Wakefield. Margaret's strategic efforts to consolidate support in Scotland and northern England further emphasized her capacity to influence the course of events, demonstrating her ability to wield soft power alongside military might. Prelude to the battle. In December 1460, York advanced northward with an army of approximately 5,000 men, accompanied by his second son, Edmund, Earl of Rutland, and Richard Neville, Earl of Salisbury. Establishing himself at Sandal Castle near Wakefield, York anticipated reinforcements to fortify his position. Despite his strategic intent, York underestimated the operational acumen of the Lancastrian commanders, Henry Beaufort, Duke of Somerset, and Andrew Trollope, an experienced tactician. Trollope's role was particularly significant, as his earlier defection from the Yorkists had provided the Lancastrians with critical insights into Yorkist tactics. The Lancastrians employed subterfuge, disseminating intelligence suggesting their forces were in retreat and disorganized. Deceived by this stratagem and eager to capitalize on an apparent weakness, York led his troops out from the security of Sandal Castle into open battle. Unbeknownst to him, the Lancastrians had amassed a formidable force, estimated at 15,000 soldiers, which encircled the Yorkist army, ensuring their tactical disadvantage. York's decision to engage the Lancastrians in open combat rather than awaiting reinforcements remains a topic of intense historical debate, with some attributing it to overconfidence and others to flawed intelligence. The battle. The ensuing engagement was marked by its brevity and ferocity. The Yorkist forces, outmaneuvered and significantly outnumbered, were rapidly overwhelmed. The battle dissolved into disarray, with Yorkist troops succumbing to the Lancastrian onslaught. Richard of York fought valiantly, yet he was captured and killed, his death symbolizing both the end of his political aspirations and a profound setback for the Yorkist cause. Contemporary chroniclers describe the chaos of the battlefield, emphasizing the psychological toll of the Lancastrians' ambush on Yorkist morale. The aftermath was equally harrowing. Edmund, Earl of Rutland, was intercepted while fleeing and executed by Lord Clifford, whose actions were fueled by a vendetta for his father's death in Yorkist hands. This act of vengeance epitomized the personal animosities that intensified the ferocity of the Wars of the Roses. Rutland's youth, he was likely in his late teens, and the brutality of his execution have been frequently cited as emblematic of the war's disregard for the conventions of chivalry. The Lancastrians further cemented their victory through symbolic brutality. Richard of York's decapitated head was displayed on Micklegate Bar in York, adorned with a paper crown in a grotesque parody of his claim to the throne. Such actions, while aimed at demoralizing the Yorkists, also galvanized their resolve, inciting a desire for retribution among their supporters. This theatrical act of humiliation underscored the Lancastrian reliance on psychological warfare to solidify their position in a fractious political landscape. Consequences of the battle. While the death of Richard of York was a significant blow, it was not insurmountable for the Yorkist cause. Leadership transitioned seamlessly to his eldest son, Edward, Earl of March, whose military prowess and political acumen revitalized Yorkist fortunes. Edward's victories at the battles of Mortimer's Cross and Taunton in early 1461 decisively shifted the balance of power, culminating in his ascension as King Edward IV. Thus, the Yorkist vision persisted, albeit under new leadership. Edward's rise to power was characterized by his ability to unify disparate factions within the Yorkist cause, a skill that contrasted sharply with his father's polarizing leadership style. Conversely, Queen Margaret's role in orchestrating the Lancastrian resurgence underscored her strategic acumen and unwavering commitment to her son's cause. However, the excessive brutality exhibited at Wakefield, particularly the treatment of Richard and Edmund, cast a shadow over the Lancastrians. These actions, perceived as egregious even in a brutal era, fortified Yorkist resolve and contributed to the enduring cycle of vengeance that characterized the conflict. Margaret's reliance on scorched earth tactics and symbolic acts of dominance also alienated some moderate supporters, complicating her efforts to sustain a unified coalition. Historical interpretations. The defeat at Wakefield has been the subject of extensive scholarly analysis. Historians frequently critique Richard of York's overconfidence and his failure to adequately assess the Lancastrian threat. His decision to abandon the defensible position of Sandal Castle is often viewed as a critical miscalculation. Furthermore, the Lancastrians' adept use of psychological and tactical deception highlights their strategic superiority in this instance. Modern military historians have drawn parallels between the Lancastrian tactics at Wakefield and broader principles of medieval warfare, emphasizing the role of deception and terrain in achieving victory. From a broader perspective, the battle exemplifies the shifting nature of loyalty and power dynamics during the Wars of the Roses. The period's inherent instability, compounded by the personal ambitions of its protagonists, rendered outcomes unpredictable and alliances tenuous. The interplay of strategic ingenuity and human error at Wakefield encapsulates the complexity of medieval warfare and political maneuvering. Moreover, the battle serves as a case study in the intersection of personal vendetta and political strategy, illustrating how individual grievances could escalate into transformative historical events. Cultural and literary legacy. The Battle of Wakefield and the tragic death of Richard of York have been immortalized in cultural and literary traditions, particularly through the works of William Shakespeare. In his history plays, such as Henry VI, Part 3, Shakespeare dramatizes the events, emphasizing themes of ambition, betrayal, and the human cost of dynastic conflict. These portrayals, though often embellished for dramatic effect, have shaped popular perceptions of the battle and its participants. The bard's depiction of Richard's downfall imbues the historical narrative with a sense of inevitability and tragic grandeur, resonating with audiences across generations. Beyond literature, the battle remains a focal point for historical commemoration. Monuments, reenactments, and scholarly studies continue to honor its significance, ensuring that the events of Wakefield remain integral to the historiography of the Wars of the Roses. The battle's enduring legacy is further reflected in modern interpretations that explore its broader implications for English national identity and the evolution of medieval kingship. Conclusion. The 1460 Battle of Wakefield and the subsequent death of Richard of York represent a defining moment in the Wars of the Roses. This episode exemplifies the multifaceted nature of medieval conflict, encompassing elements of strategy, personal ambition, and political upheaval. While the battle marked a temporary triumph for the Lancastrians, it also catalyzed the eventual Yorkist ascendancy under Edward IV. The enduring legacy of Wakefield lies in its reflection of the broader themes of loyalty, power, and resilience that defined this turbulent period of English history. Its complex interplay of human ambition, strategic ingenuity, and historical contingency ensures its place as a pivotal episode in the annals of medieval England. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more journeys back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious.